Here's a heads up. Your franchise player might be getting traded, and that's because the NBA has changed and nobody has really noticed. The trade deadline is the new free agency. Back in the day, the only time we ever saw star players move was if they waited to become free agents or demanded a trade in the last year of their contracts. That is no longer the case. Use this year as an example. Summer 2024, the biggest free agency moves were Klay Thompson, Isaiah Hartenstein and Paul George, while at the trade deadline, we saw Luka Doncic, Anthony Davis and Jimmy Butler getting moved. I bring this up to highlight the fact that the Luka trade really changed everything, and Anthony Edwards explained why right here.
Does it inform like you at 23?
Everybody get informed.
I was gonna say
I'm scared.
How you see the league?
I'm scared. Tim, hey, if you're gonna trade me, let me know, dog.
He has a point. If the Dallas Mavericks can trade Luka Doncic, who was considered one of the most untouchable assets in the entire league, that makes everybody else expendable. And the move more than anything represents a shift. For years now, the NBA has been all about player empowerment. The star players have called the shots, from getting coaches fired to applying pressure on the front offices to make moves. Like anything in life, once something goes so far one way, there's often pushback. And I call what's happening right now the owners strike back. The Luka trade represents something bigger than basketball. It is an organization who put the foot down and stood on business. They didn't like the way Luka Doncic conducted himself. They already paid him more than $200 million in his first contract, and for his next contract he was eligible for $350 million. While nobody can deny Luka delivered the goods on the court, but there were things going on behind the scenes that the Mavs weren't happy about, and by trading him they effectively set a new standard for young stars across the league that we don't care how good you are and what you do for us on the basketball court. We are not going to be pressured into giving you another massive contract if you're not doing what we want you to do. The owners feel as if for too long they've had to pay crazy contracts out of obligation, as if the players are entitled to this crazy money. And there is some truth to that, and Cade Cunningham is a great example. Now I want to make clear I am not saying Cade is a bad player. I'm not even saying it's a bad contract. The Pistons are a great young team going to make the playoffs and have a bright future ahead of them. Re-signing Cade was the right decision. I'm talking about his resume at this specific point in time, because for a lot of owners who own these teams as investments and aren't really into the basketball, that's what really matters. Above winning championships, the NBA is a business. And in summer 2024, the Pistons extended Cade to a 5-year, $224 million rookie max extension. What in those 3 years leading up to that extension did Cade Cunningham really do to earn $250 million? Remember, that money is coming out of somebody's pocket. He was the number 1 pick in the draft. His first season, Detroit won 23 games and were the 14th seed. His sophomore season, the Pistons won 17 games and had the worst record in the NBA by a considerable distance. In Cade's third season, Detroit won 14 games and lost 28 times in a row.
Yeah, we're not 2-26 bad.
They were able to get Cade Cunningham by being one of the worst teams in the league. They regressed every single year after drafting him. Individually, he made 0 All-Star appearances, didn't win Rookie of the Year, and he missed 108 of a possible 246 games. That's 43% of games he didn't play. Pistons didn't even make the play-in tournament, never mind the playoffs. The highest they ever finished was the 14th seed. And by the time Cade was eligible for his rookie extension, Detroit weren't any better than they were before drafting him. Now imagine you're an owner and you know nothing about basketball, and you're told you need to pay this guy $225 million. You look at the team's record and they're in last place. You look at the player's CV and you don't see any credible accolades we associate with star players, All-NBA, All-Stars, etc. So this contract is just one of many examples that represent a standard that has been set that NBA owners have reluctantly put up with for a long time. In the past, to make big time money in the NBA, you had to really earn it. Michael Jordan made between $3 and $4 million per season during the first three-peat. It wasn't until after the 96 Bulls won 72 games and back-to-back championships in 1996 that he started earning the big bucks, jumping from $3.8 million to $30 million a season. Jordan won multiple MVPs, multiple championships, set countless NBA records, and got paid, deservingly so. The standard back then was the payment came as a reward for what you accomplish. Nowadays, you get paid based on what you might accomplish. Teams are paying for potential and and not proven results. And Cade Cunningham's max rookie extension tells any college or high school player projected to be a top pick in the draft that you don't have to have any individual accolades. You don't have to win games. It's okay if you're the worst team in the NBA. You're going to be the number one option, you're going to have a high usage rate, you're going to get to take your shots, and as long as you're not terrible and can put up some good numbers, by 23 years old you're going to get a contract in the range of $250 million and nobody will question it. That right there is what's about to change. Teams are going to be a lot more cautious with committing big money to players and not just give out these crazy contract extensions for the sake of them. Because the Mavs trading Luka Doncic, who took them to the finals last year at 25 years old, that now empowers other teams to be able to justify making decisions that deep down they really want to make. And those reasons right there is why your franchise player might get traded. And if you're a fan of the Grizzlies, Hornets or Hawks, you guys might be next up because of this shift. But before you predict who the players are, let's take a moment to hear from today's sponsor, Kalshi, the first and only legal prediction market that allows you to trade on sports and real life events. And with the Final Four of March Madness happening right now, I'm gonna make my predictions. So the first game of the Final Four, we have Auburn versus Florida, and although the Florida Gators are stacked, I'm gonna choose Auburn because I believe Johnny Brune is that good. And for example, if I put $100 here with Auburn being the underdogs, my payout would be $257. Now for the Duke versus Houston game, I'm going to be picking the Blue Devils, setting up a national championship game between the two frontrunners for the National Player of the Year award. In this Final Four game, Duke are obviously heavy favourites, so in this case my total payout from a $100 trade would be $139. And as a bonus, I'll predict what happens in the championship game. With all the rumours of Cooper Flagg returning to Duke next season, I think Auburn beats them, wins the championship, and Duke losing in the championship game is what makes Cooper decide to return to college instead of going to the NBA draft this summer. But that is just my prediction, and you can make your own, and it doesn't have to be sports. Kalshi has markets on almost everything: politics, movies, music, crypto and more. They have over 1 million users in all 50 states and have facilitated over $2 billion worth of trades. So put your money where your mouth is and sign up using my link on the screen, kalshi.com/DKM, which can be found easily down below in the description, and the first 500 traders that trade 100 contracts will get a free $10 credit. Thank you to Kalshi for sponsoring this video, and let's get back to our predictions. Let's start this off in Charlotte. We have reached a point now where it's not a matter of if LaMelo is going to be traded, it's a matter of when. Not because he's requested to leave, no, it actually seems as if the organization is done with him. LaMelo has been a Hornet for 5 years. He got off to a great start, winning Rookie of the Year and making an All-Star his sophomore season, but 3 seasons later, after signing his rookie max extension, it's been rough. Melo played 36 games in 2023, 22 games in 2024, and this year he just got shut down for the rest of the season after playing just 47 games. The Hornets have been terrible over these 3 years, the 4-team seed, 13th seed, and could possibly finish as the 15th seed this year. And despite LaMelo having a career year statistically, he was snubbed from this year's All-Star game, and hasn't made an All-Star appearance since signing his rookie extension. The LaMelo Ball rebuild has been nothing short of a disaster. He's going into year 6 soon, and the Hornets are nowhere close to being competitive. Every half-decent player they have is injury prone, and with the front office publicly stating that they plan to rebuild over these next few years through the draft, that suggests that more tanking is to come. And if the goal is to get picks, and you plan to lose anyway, then trading LaMelo Ball for draft capital is something they're seriously going to consider. If you've watched any Hornets games of late, it's clear to see that LaMelo has checked out. His body language is off, and the same joy and confidence he's always played with seems to be gone. LaMelo is miserable, he's tired of losing, he's missing out on All-Star games, he's watching his peers around him receive accolades, be competitive, get respect, while he is stuck in a situation where year after year there are no signs of progress. And reports have now come out that LaMelo wants to be in a winning situation. And if history tells us one thing, winning and Charlotte Hornets don't go hand in hand. When you look at this team, there is nothing you can look at and say there might be an improvement sometime soon. And because of that, it's safe to assume the Hornets will be selecting at the top of the draft for the coming years. Now let's just use Cooper Flagg as an example because we know his name and he's the projected #1 pick in this draft. If the Hornets get Cooper or draft another young star of similar caliber, then that player will become the focal point of the rebuild, and the timelines don't match up. A small market team like Charlotte is never going to pay 3 guys max money. money. Brandon Miller is eligible for a rookie max extension this summer, so looking forward down the line, by the time you have to pay Cooper, LaMelo is going to be eligible for his supermax extension. Kemba Walker is arguably the greatest player in franchise history. He left on bad terms because they were unwilling to give him his money. They will do LaMelo the same way, and considering the fact we're 3 seasons into his rookie max extension, and the fact that the Hornets are in no better position now than when they drafted him, why would they commit another $250 million, $300 million to keeping him around? They won't. Fans and media in Charlotte doubt whether or not he's capable of being a number 1 option on a winning team anyway, so if LaMelo isn't in the plans long term, then trading him this summer might be the right thing to do. He has several years left on his contract, so teams that trade for him don't have to worry about losing him in free agency. And if you're Charlotte, you have to consider his trade value could be at its peak right now. You don't want to risk another losing season plagued with injuries. Melo is still young, 23 turning 24 years old this year. He's having statistically the best year of his career, averaging 25.6 points per game. I don't know how else to say this, but for both parties, I'm about to tell you who should trade for LaMelo Ball, but I want to remind you he's one of 3 players I'm going to talk about in this video, and because they're all point guards, you could make a case for any of these 3 guys playing for these 3 teams. Instead of wasting your time repeating the same arguments for each player, I'm just going to pick one for each team. And for LaMelo Ball, I've picked the Houston Rockets. After missing the play-in tournament as the 11th seed last season, Houston has been one of the biggest surprises in the Western Conference, winning over 60% of their games. They have young talent in Şengün, Amen Thompson, Jabari Smith Jr. and Jalen Green, experienced role players in Van Vliet, Steven Adams and Dylan Brooks. Combine that with a great coach with Ime Udoka, and you can see why they're competitive. But for as good as they've been in the regular season, nobody considers them serious contenders in the West. And that's because they're missing that franchise point guard. LaMelo Ball fits that profile, and they can make a deal happen. Fred VanVleet has been a great player for a long time, but at 31 years old, he seems to be on the decline, averaging the worst numbers since his early years in Toronto. VanVleet is expected to earn $44 million next season, but the Rockets have a team option. They get to decide whether or not he stays around, and given the timeline of their team, it makes sense for them to move on from him. LaMelo fits the timeline. At 23 years old, his best years are still ahead of him, and he has the individual star power that a big market team like Houston craves. The Rockets have a lot of assets, and young players of value that the Hornets could want. Guys like Cam Whitmore, Reed Shepherd, Jabari Smith Jr., even Fred VanVleet could be included to make the salaries work in a sign-in trade. Some picks would likely be included to get a deal done, considering that's what Charlotte's after, but whatever package is presented, the Rockets have the flexibility to get a deal done. And can you imagine a lineup next season? LaMelo Ball joining Jalen Green in the backcourt, with Amen Thompson, the two-way specialist, at the 3, Dylan Brooks at the 4 and Şengün at the 5. All of a sudden, Houston has one of the best young cores in the NBA, and we've seen before that Ime Udoka is capable of taking young teams with a ton of talent to the next level. Houston offers LaMelo an opportunity he has never had, to play under an established winning coach, to be surrounded by talent and depth, capable scorers that will maximize his playmaking ability, take some of the burden off him offensively. This is the sort of environment he needs to become a true superstar in the NBA, and with OKC setting the standard in the West, this move could put Houston right up there in the mix for teams we expect to contend in the Western Conference for years to come. Now the next player is somebody I never thought would get traded, but this has started to gain some serious traction among NBA circles, and there's new reports every day. The player I'm talking about is Ja Morant. When you think about franchise players, Ja ticked all the boxes. He was the number 2 pick in the draft, most improved player, an all-star, all-NBA. He was the guy in Memphis. But as we know all too well, a lot can change in the NBA world very quickly. Everything went downhill for Ja Morant after the gun incidents. He was suspended twice, missed around 30 games in total, and faced serious consequences for his actions. He lost sponsorships, wasn't selected for the Olympic team, and missed out on almost $40 million in contract incentives. Since then, things have got worse for Ja Morant. After returning from his suspension last season, he played just 9 games. And this season, individually, he's not been the Ja we know and love. He's averaging the worst numbers since his sophomore season, 21.7 points, 7.5 assists and 4 rebounds per game. He's shooting the lowest percentage from the field in his entire career, and 28% from the perimeter, which is his worst ever, excluding the 9 games he played last season. Much like the Charlotte Hornets, the question in Memphis now is, do you want to pay him the Supermax extension? Then trading him sooner rather than later is the best move, because Ja Morant is no longer seen as the franchise guy in Memphis. Jaren Jackson Jr. has been their best player this season. season. He's become one of the best two-way players in the NBA. He's one of the front runners to win Defensive Player of the Year, averaging 3 stocks per game. Offensively, he's having a career year, leading the team in scoring, averaging 22.7 points on 60% true shooting. Now, ideally, you'd want to keep everybody together, but there is a salary cap, and this is where things get complicated. Jaren Jackson Jr. is currently making $23 million per year. He's eligible for an extension, and at 25 years old, with potentially 2 Defensive Player of the Years and 2 All-Star appearances on his resume, he could command the $345 million 5-year Supermax contract. If the Grizzlies decide to pay Jaren Jackson Jr., then what does that mean for Ja Morant? Because the Grizzlies also paid Desmond Bane a rookie max extension for $207 million over 5 years. Bane is under contract until 2029, and that's going to be a hard contract to move. So if both Ja and Jackson Jr. get the Supermax, while paying Desmond Bane $44 million per season, Memphis will be paying close to $185 million per year for 3 players. That gives them very little flexibility within the cap to make other moves, strengthen the roster, and even retain the guys they already have. It's a lot to ask for a small market team, because while it's a solid big 3, it's not one that necessarily guarantees a championship. And there's a big debate about whether or not the Grizzlies even need Ja Morant anymore, so he's no longer considered this irreplaceable, untouchable asset he once was. It has been speculated for years that the Grizzlies organization is done with Ja, they just wanted to give it some time after the suspension before moving on from him. And clearly, Ja hasn't learned his lesson. He was recently warned by the NBA for making gun gestures to the opposing bench, and then in the first quarter of the very next game did the same thing and was fined $75,000. Another thing to consider is the type of player he is. By the time Ja is eligible for his next extension, he will be in his late 20s. Not only is there a narrative in the NBA that undersized, uber-athletic, high-flying guards don't win championships, but they are also very injury-prone. Russell Westbrook, Derrick Rose are 2 recent examples of MVPs that never won championships and had to deal with injuries throughout their careers. Ja Morant's health history is already concerning. 6 years into the NBA, he's never played more than 70 games in a season. He's only played 65 games once, which is the new threshold to be eligible for any accolades. With all those things considered, are you willing to pay this player $60, possibly $70 million a year into his 30s? This is the question they are contemplating in Memphis, and that's why the idea of moving on from him now while he's still young and has value in the trade market is something they're seriously considering according to reports. Picking one team for Ja Morant is difficult because Memphis has options. They can strengthen their already strong depth by acquiring multiple starting caliber players, or they can go all out and trade Ja for a star like for like. The Phoenix Suns is one to keep an eye on. The worst kept secret in the NBA is that Kevin Durant is getting traded this summer. Now, not only would this give Memphis a win-now superstar that can help take them to the next level in the postseason, but for Phoenix it works too. Pairing Ja Morant with Devin Booker aligns with their vision to pivot to Devin Booker's timeline long term, but also keeps them competitive enough for now. You then get rid of Bradley Beal's contract and put some pieces around him, then Phoenix could end up a lot better. But when I think about Ja Morant's next destination and I close my eyes, I only see one team, and that's the Miami Heat. Despite losing Jimmy Butler, the Heat still have some solid building blocks. Bam Adebayo is a two-way star and Tyler Hero is having a career year. Those two guys at 25 and 27 years old are going to be around for the foreseeable future. Ja Morant not only fits their timeline age-wise, but he fits their team too. The Heat need a point guard. Davion Mitchell and Terry Rozier are not starting caliber guards on championship-winning teams. And for all the negative things people say about Ja Morant, he can still be that guy. Eric Spoelstra is a great coach. He always gets the best out of his group, and perhaps the discipline imposed by Pat Riley and Heat culture is what Ja needs after all the controversies in Memphis. Miami is a big market. Ja Morant is a superstar. He could be their guy. And the Heat have always had a guy. From Dwayne Wade, Shaq, LeBron, Jimmy Butler, they always have a superstar caliber player, and Ja fits the criteria to be the next one in line. The Heat are also never the type to be at a standstill for too long. Despite all the stars coming and going over the years, they've always remained competitive. They're always in the playoffs, and within a decade of losing LeBron and D Wade, were able to make the finals on 2 occasions. The Grizzlies would want a big package for Ja. Draft capital wouldn't be the priority because they're trying to win now. So pretty much everyone other than Hero and Bam would have to be on the table for this to work. There's probably teams out there that can offer them more, but don't be surprised if Pat Riley finds a way and we see Ja Morant in the 305 sometime soon. And the last franchise guard we can probably expect to be traded soon is Trae Young. on. Surely we can all agree that this is best for both parties. We just saw in Sacramento, De'Aaron Fox, in year 8 and 27 years old, finally get tired of his situation and he was traded to the San Antonio Spurs. Likewise, next year Trae Young will be in year 8, 27 years old, and he seems to be getting tired of his situation in Atlanta in terms of where they are now. Time is running out. Besides the 2020-21 season when Atlanta made that surprise run to the conference finals, it's been the same story every year for the Hawks. They just can't take that next step. Trae had a deep playoff run at a young age, 21 years old, playing on the biggest stage. He's not been back there since. He would have thought from that point forward they'd continue to progress and be in contention every year. That just hasn't happened. Over the last 4 years the Hawks have been the 8th seed, 7th seed, 10th seed, and this season are the 7th seed again. They're always in play-in tournament territory, always around the 500 mark, but simply never good enough. They've tried new coaches, made moves over the years acquiring pieces such as DeJounte Murray, an all-star, Danilo Gallinari, Bogdanovic. All three of those guys have come and gone. They recently acquired Karis LeVert and Terrence Mann. They've been aggressive in making moves, more so than the Hornets have been for LaMelo, but they've never been able to pair Trae with a second star that fits and sticks. When the Hawks famously traded for Trae Young, giving up Luka Doncic on draft night, they had a young core trying to emulate what the Warriors did in Golden State. Trae Young is the only player still on the team from that era. Even after landing the #1 pick in the draft, taking Zachary Risacher, acquiring Dyson Daniels, who's become one of the best perimeter defenders in the NBA. Jalen Johnson was having a breakout year prior to his injury. All of this is happening, but this Hawks team doesn't seem to be going anywhere, and looking at their roster, it's hard to see a scenario where they can make a significant move that's going to change that. As for Trae Young's personal ambition, he's in a unique situation where he's desperate to prove his worth. He wants to compete and win, because over the years Trae has become one of the most disrespected stars in the NBA. He's never considered for Team USA, is often snubbed from All-Star games, and despite being one of the best offensive players statistically in the NBA every year, he's constantly overlooked when we talk about the best players in his position. Every year, whether it's Tyrese Halliburton, Cade Cunningham, whoever, we're so quick to put the next guy above Trae Young in our point guard rankings. And we know why that is. He's undersized, doesn't play defense, and Trae isn't somebody we associate with winning. And that's all the more reason why he wants to change that. And if that's going to happen, then leaving the Hawks makes the most sense. Trae has 1 year left on his contract. After this season, he has a player option that can make him an unrestricted free agent. Trae has been vocal in the past that winning is his priority, and if it doesn't happen for him in the A, he'll go look for it elsewhere. So unless against all odds the Hawks can pull out some crazy trade or land a top free agent, he's probably going to test the waters and see what's out there in free agency. So the Hawks have a decision to make. Are they even willing to pay Trae Young a max deal, potentially 30 to 35% of their salary for more of what we've seen for the last 4 or 5 years? Do they want to risk losing him for nothing when they can trade him this summer, acquire some draft capital, and construct a new roster around their #1 pick, Jalen Johnson and others? We all know it makes sense for both parties to move on. So what teams would be interested? Well, the San Antonio Spurs were interested and were the favourites to get Trae. For obvious reasons, he'd have been a great fit alongside Wemby, but now that they've got Fox, that's probably off the table. Where I think the best fit for Trae Young is Orlando, Florida. Can we all agree it's been too long? I want to see the Magic be great again. And for the first time since the Dwight trade, there's something to be excited about in Orlando. Last season they were the 5th seed, won 47 games, and although this year they're below 500, Paolo has missed considerable time. Make no mistake about it, the Magic have a bright future ahead of them. Banchero and Franz Wagner are two of the best young forwards in the NBA. Moritz Wagner is nice too. Jalen Suggs is one of the best backcourt defenders and just an all-around good basketball player that brings a lot of things to the table. The one thing this team lacks in order to take them to the next level is a point guard. Anthony Black and Cole Anthony are decent young players, but they can do better. Right now it's like the Magic have all the spoons, knives and forks, but nobody to dish and set the table. Trae Young can do just that. He is one of the NBA's best passers, leading the league in assists, averaging 11.5 per game this season. He has the quality to facilitate and maximize all the different weapons they have at their disposal. As for Trae Young, the scorer, this season he's having one of his least efficient years statistically, partially because he carries such a large burden on his shoulders. In Orlando, with two 25 point per game scorers, I would expect Trae Young to score less but do so more efficiently, and focus more on his playmaking, which is his best attribute. Also, the same way we see with Dyson Daniels, having a player of Suggs' quality paired alongside him in the backcourt would help cover his defensive deficiencies. Jalen Suggs has the leadership quality qualities to take on some playmaking responsibility and allow Trae to play off the ball, which would allow him to get open looks and increase his percentage from 3-point range. And I just think if you get Trae Young on the Magic, they become one of the best teams in the East right away. And long term, with the core they have, once Paolo and Franz enter their prime, they could be the best team in the conference. I'm personally very high on the Magic, and I think they're on the brink of something special and are just one piece away. Of available players right now, Trae Young is the piece, and they have the assets to make a move. Orlando have a bunch of first round picks. You pair some of those picks with a package including guys like Jonathan Isaac, Anthony Black, Cole Anthony, Wendell Carter Jr., then you potentially have a deal between the two teams. As long as you can get it done while keeping the Wagner brothers, Paolo and Suggs, then you should go and get Trae Young by any means necessary. The team needs an offensive creator, a floor general, and a franchise point guard to reach the next level, and Trae Young might be the perfect guy for that role. But real quick, I want to ask you guys, what do you think of everything I've said in this video? Do you believe that after the Luka trade we're going to see more quote-unquote franchise players get traded? And if so, where do you think the three guys I've mentioned in this video are going to end up? Let me know what team you'd like to see LaMelo, Trae, Ja play for, where they fit if you agree with my points. Share all your thoughts and feedback down below in the comments. Click the big box in the middle of your screen to watch our last video talking about Bronny James, where we talk about how they tried to humiliate him and it backfired in their face. Click the box in the middle of your screen to watch that, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications and like the video if you've made it up to this point. And on that note, it's DKM signing out. Until next time, and peace.